All right, this is the session of the day, March 15th, 21 for Harley. Harley's an 11-month-old Welsh pony filly, and she's been with us a little over 6 weeks now. So the first 5 weeks were quite complicated, really challenging. She was extremely overreactive and very scared, and pushy nippy at the same time, which was a weird combination. So about 8 to 10 days ago, I switched to positive reinforcement, also known as clicker training, for her, and that has changed the outcome completely. We've been able to build a bond of trust, and now we're working once or twice a day, short sessions, under 10 minutes, and here I try to do a little bit. So this is a session for the day. So the biggest issue for her was being tethered, because she did not understand pressure on her head whatsoever, and she would really freak out and melt down completely, and rear straight up and just run away, pull backwards. She dragged me all over this pasture that you can see here. It was a real mess. So the fact that she's able to go on a circle on the lunge like this, being so good, so quiet, she was really very good today. I don't think she's ever been this good, actually. That's maybe her best session so far. What I try to do here is to keep my body energy really very chill, but not tiptoe either, because she has a huge issue with energy and motion. If you move a little too fast or with too much intent, she freaks out. So I try to stay chill, but at the same time move and not tiptoe, and I tried a little bit later in the session to trot with her. So far I'd only been leading her walking, because leading her is still kind of an issue. It's still challenging for her. She has her ears pinned the whole time she's leading, and you can tell she's very tense, and she's sometimes ready to jump out of her skin. So but here she goes on the circle really well. And she did not try to stop today. When I was putting her on the circle, she would just go and go and go. And I tried to get at least a lap and a half, or sometimes two, and then ask her to stop and turn and face me. And she did beautifully. And she never offered to stop by herself or block or stop suddenly by herself. And she followed my direction really, really well. And she was super good today. So she's extremely, light on the cues, because she's so, feely and fine and reactive. So it doesn't take much to get her to switch from one thing to the other. Also today, the focus was on trying to get her out of my personal space, because she's been historically very, very pushy, very in your space, and also very nippy. And paradoxically enough, treating her, giving her food rewards for training has made her much better. She doesn't try to bite half as much as she did. She knows the food is coming. She's pretty polite about taking it. She doesn't pinch my hands like she used to, so she's gotten much better with that. And all my horses that I always train some things with positive reinforcement, so there are food rewards in all my training. And amusingly enough, people say, usually they don't use food rewards because it will make the horse nippy, and that's been quite the opposite in my experience. When they learn how to take the treat, and when they're gonna get treated, and of course you have to do it properly so they don't mug you, But if you do it properly, you will actually teach them not to bite you. That's an argument that doesn't stand, for people who do not like to use food because they are afraid the horses are gonna mug them. That's actually the opposite that happens if you do it properly, of course, but it needs to be done properly, like everything else. So here, as you can see, I was playing with get away from me and then come back to me, and I on purpose I put a little bit more pressure on this halter, because she used to rear straight up when she felt pressure on her head. So now she's pretty good with that. So this was the very first attempt to trot in hand with her, because so far if I moved my body a little fast, she would freak out. That would scare her very badly. And here, well, as you can see, I'm just jogging really cautiously and stopping often enough that she can kind of downregulate but she's doing pretty well, you know, she's doing pretty well. So that was a pretty successful first attempt at jogging with her. I hope that I can, you know, run a whole lot faster and closer to her in the future. But look at that was pretty good. I was pretty happy with her. And here I said, hey, don't be in my pocket. I'm gonna treat you, but you know, go back to, you know, your own space. That's right. And she's getting that. She's pretty good with that. She tends to crowd you, but if you tell her to back up, she backs up pretty willingly. The other cue that I'm giving her is head down, because she tends to be so hyper that I really want to be able to make her down regulate easily. And so I think this cue is super important to install on her, to put her head down. And I want to be able to put her head down by pulling on her chin on a halter, because as I said before, pressure on her head was just a deal breaker. She'd go crazy with it, so she's much better with that. And I also want to be able to put her head down by touching her paw between her ears there, and she responded pretty well to that today as well. And of course, I always do everything on both sides. I really insist to do everything from both sides with horses, and even when they're under saddle, I will still mount and dismount as much from the right as I do from the left, because you just see too many horses that are good from the left and scared on the right, and almost sometimes impossible to handle from the right. So I really try to make sure with all the horses I work with that they can be worked and handled from both sides. Okay, this is the exercise that really challenged her until today. She got a breakthrough today, and she's doing much better here in this particular clip. But what I'm trying to do is to walk around her, or her walking around me, but at close distance, and that she bends her body. And before today, she was really defensive, and especially on this right side, when I went to walk around her and walk towards the hips to disengage her hindquarters, she would really move like, you know, an uncooked spaghetti. She would back up, be very stiff, not bend, and not cross over. Her inside hind would never cross over. She was backing up defensively, and usually hitting her hindquarter feet were hitting each other because she was not crossing under. And as you can see here, she did good. She crossed over on both in both directions, so that's a big breakthrough today. And here this is work in progress. I've been working on picking her feet for a bunch of sessions now. This is the best that she's done so far, I think, meaning not being too anxious about getting the treat, not pawing, not trying to remove her leg nervously. She let me handle her front legs pretty good here and keep them up for a second or two, which is the most we've gotten so far. Her hindquarters, she's still really funny with them. She's not threatening to kick you, but she's trying kind of pulling them back underneath her, and you never know if once it's underneath her, if it's not going to come out to the outside and hit you somewhere. So she's not trying to kick, but you know that if you handle them, you know, too long, or else, well, she may change her mind about that. So what I'm going to do here is I'm going to use the rope again around her pastern to lift her foot. I've done it before. I haven't done it for a few days. You're going to see she's a little funny about it, but it's more because she anticipates actually lifting her foot to let me handle it, and that's why she kind of lifts her foot like that. Here I managed to get the rope around it, so as you can see at this point, it's just unloading the weight and just lifting the foot, and I give it right back. You know, there's no way I'm gonna grab it or keep it for the moment. She's really not up to that point that she would accept that. So that's all I'm asking for at the moment. I'm keeping the front feet a little bit longer. I'm starting to tap the underneath of the foot, but for the rear feet, it's just, you know, touch and lift and give back right away. Here she gets a little funky for me getting this rope around her foot, but as you can see, she's not mean. She's very honest. She's not vicious. She never tries to do anything to hurt. You know, if she did any she if she happened to hurt me, that would be really accidental. She would be just getting scared and maybe spooking and kicking when as she goes away or something like that. But there is not a mean bone, you know, in her body, even though she pins her ears almost constantly when she interacts with you, which is kind of, you know, it takes getting used to, because at first the constant ear pinning like that, I was like, ooh, you know, what's going on? That's just her. And when there's energy going on, when there's interaction going on, it just challenges her a little bit, and she has her ears pinned a lot of the time, but she's never done anything mean, you know. She tried to strike with a front foot one day, in the very very beginning I had her, and I think she was just very challenged, and she got in trouble for it, but she never you know, did it again. So that's the end of the clip. I'm gonna tell her to just back up and turn the camera away.